Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast.
All right, so let's imagine you're getting ready for like a big meeting about cybersecurity and cryptocurrency. Or maybe you're just someone who's fascinated by how these two worlds kind of like collide.
Yeah.
Either way, you've sent us some seriously interesting articles about a major crypto heist.
Right.
And you want the inside scoop. So basically what we're looking at is U.S. authorities have seized $23 million in crypto. And it's all tied to this $150 million theft from a Ripple executive's wallet.
Yeah, and the really interesting part here is that investigators think this all goes back to those big LastPass breaches from 2022.
Okay, so we've got this alleged connection between a password manager breach and then this huge crypto theft. Let's break this down step by step.
Okay.
First things first.
Yeah.
Those LastPass breaches back in August and November of 2022. What exactly did the hackers get their hands on?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. It wasn't just your typical usernames and passwords.
Okay.
They actually got away with the source code for LastPass, which is essentially like the blueprint for the whole system.
Right.
And to make matters worse, they also snagged customer vault data.
Oh, wow.
And that's where all those encrypted passwords and other sensitive information are stored.
So basically, they hit the jackpot. They had the plans to the bank and the keys to the vault.
Exactly.
Then fast forward to January 2024, we have Chris Larson, who's the co-founder of Ripple, reporting a staggering $150 million stolen from his crypto wallet.
Yeah.
Now we're getting this detail from Zach XBT, right?
Yeah.
He's a pretty well-known crypto fraud investigator.
Right.
Almost like a digital detective.
Yeah, and he has a pretty impressive track record when it comes to uncovering these sorts of scams.
Right.
So he's definitely someone to pay attention to in the crypto world.
So we've got the LastPass breaches in 2022 and then this massive crypto theft in 2024. But how do we get from point A to point B?
Yeah.
How did investigators actually link these two events?
Well, that's where the real detective work comes in. So between June 2024 and February 2025, U.S. authorities managed to track and seize $23 million across a whole bunch of different crypto exchanges. OKX, Kraken, Whitebit, you name it.
Wow.
And they did this through something called blockchain analysis.
Hold on, blockchain analysis. Can you break that down for us?
Sure, think of the blockchain like a public ledger. Every single transaction made with cryptocurrency is recorded on this ledger.
Okay.
And it's all out in the open.
Yeah.
So even though crypto is often seen as anonymous, it actually leaves a trail.
Oh.
Blockchain analysis is basically the process of following that trail, connecting the dots between different transactions and wallets.
So it's kind of like a digital fingerprint for every crypto transaction.
You got it. And it's becoming a more and more powerful tool for law enforcement to track down stolen funds and uncover all kinds of criminal activity.
Okay, so blockchain analysis helped authorities recover some of the stolen crypto.
Right.
But is there anything else tying this theft back to the LastPass breaches?
There is. The U.S. Justice Department filed this forfeiture complaint that lays out the evidence pretty clearly.
Okay.
And what's really crucial here is that investigators didn't find any evidence that Chris Larson's devices were hacked directly.
Meaning what?
Meaning the hackers didn't have to break into his computer or his phone to get access to his crypto. The most likely scenario, according to investigators, is that they used the stolen LastPass vault data to get a hold of his private keys.
And just to be clear, private keys are basically the passwords that give you access to your cryptocurrency, right?
Exactly. They're like the ultimate key to the kingdom. If someone gets their hands on your private keys, they have complete control over your crypto assets.
Oh, wow.
And in this case, the forfeiture complaint specifically states that the scale of the theft and the rapid dissipation of funds would have required the efforts of multiple malicious actors and was consistent with the online password manager breaches. Basically, they're saying the way this whole thing went down matches the MO of other crypto thefts linked to LastPass.
So it sounds like they've got a pretty strong case. But what does LastPass have to say about all of this? Surely they've issued some kind of response.
They have. In a statement, they said they're cooperating with law enforcement.
Okay.
But so far, there's no conclusive evidence directly linking the crypto thefts to their breach.
Interesting. No conclusive evidence. That's pretty carefully worded.
Right.
It almost sounds like they're leaving the door open just a crack.
Yeah, it does. And it highlights a challenge we often face in these cybercrime investigations: attribution. Even with a lot of circumstantial evidence, it can be incredibly difficult to definitively prove who was actually behind an attack.
Right.
Especially in the digital world where hackers are constantly trying to cover their tracks.
So even with blockchain analysis and all this evidence, they might not be able to definitively say this person with this IP address using this computer stole this crypto.
Exactly. Proving that final link can be incredibly challenging. But that doesn't mean the evidence isn't compelling.
Okay, so we've laid out the timeline and the evidence. We've got a password manager breach, a massive crypto theft, and a trail of digital breadcrumbs leading back to the breach.
Right.
But what does all this mean for the average person who uses a password manager? Should we all be worried?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something we're going to dig into in just a moment.
All right, sounds good. We're back, and I gotta say, this whole story has got me thinking about my own digital security. I mean, if a high-profile guy like a Ripple co-founder can fall victim to this kind of attack, what chance do the rest of us have?
Right. Well, I think that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
easy to think, oh, that could never happen to me. But the reality is anyone can be a target.
Right.
This case is a stark reminder that we all need to be taking our digital security seriously.
So let's talk practical steps. What can we actually do to protect ourselves? Besides burying our computers in concrete bunkers.
Yeah, well, that's always an option. But for those of us who prefer a slightly less drastic approach, there are some really effective things you can do. And it all starts with understanding how this attack likely happened.
Okay.
The hackers probably got their hands on Chris Larson's private keys through his LastPass account.
Because they had access to the vault data from the breach, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the first takeaway here is that your password manager is only as strong as your master password.
Okay.
That's the password that unlocks your entire vault.
Right.
If that gets compromised, everything else is at risk.
Okay, so strong master password. Got it. Anything else?
Absolutely. This is where two-factor authentication, or 2FA, comes in.
Yeah.
It's an extra layer of security that requires you to confirm your identity through a secondary device like your phone whenever you log into an important account. So even if someone gets your password, they can't access your account without that second factor.
Okay, I'll admit I'm guilty of sometimes skipping 2FA because it can be kind of a hassle.
Well,
But I mean, you're making a pretty compelling case for why it's so important.
it really can make all the difference. You know, think of it this way. You wouldn't leave your front door unlocked just because it's convenient.
Right.
You lock it for security. 2FA is like that extra lock for your digital life.
Okay, strong master password, 2FA. What about the password manager itself? Should we be rethinking those altogether?
Yeah, that's a valid question. And it's one that a lot of people are asking after this whole LastPass situation.
Yep.
It's important to remember that no system is foolproof.
Right.
But in general, password managers are still a good idea.
Okay.
They can help you generate and store strong, unique passwords for all your accounts, which is way safer than reusing the same weak password everywhere.
But how do we choose a safe and reliable password manager, especially after this?
Good question. Look for a provider that has a strong track record of security and uses robust encryption methods. Do your research, read reviews, and don't be afraid to ask questions. There are plenty of reputable options out there.
Right.
And remember, even with a password manager, you still need to practice good password hygiene. Don't share your passwords with anyone, ever. Not even your best friend or your dog.
Good point.
And always be wary of phishing scams. Those are emails or messages that try to trick you into giving up your passwords or other sensitive information.
Right. Good points. And I think it's important to add that this whole situation raised some interesting questions about the world of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Even though it's often touted as decentralized and anonymous, we saw how blockchain analysis could be used to track those stolen funds across exchanges.
Right. It highlights the growing tension between privacy and security in the crypto space. On the one hand, you have this push for decentralization and anonymity, but on the other hand, you have this need to prevent illicit activities like money laundering and theft.
Right.
It's a delicate balance.
So is this a sign that crypto is becoming more regulated?
It's definitely something to watch. As cryptocurrency becomes more mainstream and more valuable, we're likely to see increased scrutiny from regulators. And the ability to track transactions through blockchain analysis will certainly play a role in shaping those regulations.
Okay, makes sense. So it's not just about protecting our passwords.
Right.
It's about understanding how our digital actions, even in the supposedly anonymous realm of crypto, can leave a trail.
Exactly. It all comes back to that interconnectedness we talked about earlier. Everything is linked in the digital world, and it's more important than ever to be mindful of the potential consequences of our actions.
So we've talked about password managers, strong passwords, 2FA, the growing role of blockchain analysis, and the implications for the future of cryptocurrency. It's a lot to digest.
It is. But the key takeaway here is that your digital security is ultimately your responsibility.
Okay.
You can't just rely on companies or technology to keep you safe.
So what's the one piece of advice you would give to our listener right now?
Be proactive. Stay informed. Educate yourself about the risks and take the necessary steps to protect your digital assets.
Good advice. And on that note, I think it's time to shift gears and talk about something a little more tangible.
Okay.
What happens when a cybercrime crosses over into the physical world?
Yeah.
Because in this case, we're not just talking about stolen data.
Right.
We're talking about real money seized by real authorities.
That's a great point. And it's something we'll explore in more detail in just a moment.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive into the real-world consequences of this cybercrime.
Right.
We've talked about the whole digital trail and the blockchain analysis. But now let's actually talk about that $23 million that U.S. authorities seized.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
We're not just dealing with like bits and bytes anymore.
Right.
This is cold, hard, cryptocurrency at least.
Yeah.
That was actually taken from the hackers.
So how did they actually get their hands on that money? I mean, isn't crypto supposed to be decentralized and beyond the reach of like traditional law enforcement?
Yeah, that's a pretty common misconception. While cryptocurrency does offer a certain degree of anonymity, it's not completely untraceable. Remember, every single transaction is recorded on the blockchain.
Right.
And that creates a trail that investigators can follow. And in this case, they were able to trace the stolen funds as they moved through different exchanges.
So once they kind of identified those exchanges where the money is found, they were able to work with those platforms to freeze the assets and then eventually seize them.
Exactly. And this highlights a really crucial point. Even in the decentralized world of cryptocurrency, centralized entities like those exchanges still play a pretty big role.
Right.
And law enforcement agencies are getting better and better at working with these exchanges to recover stolen funds.
So it's not just about catching the hackers.
Right.
It's about actually following that money trail. And hitting them where it hurts.
Yeah, their wallets.
Exactly. And I think this case could have some pretty far-reaching implications for the future of cryptocurrency regulation. If authorities are showing that they can effectively track and seize stolen funds, it could lead to like stricter regulations on those exchanges and other crypto businesses.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
So this case isn't just about one password manager breach or even just one crypto theft.
Right.
It's about the bigger picture, the evolving landscape of cybersecurity, and really that growing intersection between the digital and physical worlds.
It's a wake-up call for all of us. It's a reminder that our digital actions have real-world consequences and that we all need to be taking our digital security seriously.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key message you want our listeners to take away?
Well, I think it boils down to this: knowledge is power. The more you understand about the risks and how to protect yourself, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the digital world safely and securely. Don't be afraid to ask questions, do your research, and stay informed.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, it's not about achieving like perfect security, because that's probably impossible. It's about being aware, taking precautions, and making smart choices.
Well said. Stay vigilant out there.
And that brings us to the end of this deep dive. We hope you found it informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit thought-provoking. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep exploring the fascinating world of knowledge with us.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.